Recording has officially started. Cool. Uh, welcome to today's seminar. We're going to be doing some introductory JavaScript stuff. We're also going to be talking about solving problems with code. And I was anxious enough to get started that I didn't give Jonathan EA a chance to introduce themselves and introduce what's happening today in the school. So let's give you guys a chance to do that if you'd like. Well, okay. Well, in that case, yeah, we're going to be talking about problem solving with code as well as how to do some introductory JavaScript stuff. Uh, to reiterate, cool. Um, Before I get rolling, what's everybody's like general understanding level? Like, how many of you guys have ever coded before, or um, have any of you written any HTML, JavaScript, other coding languages? Okay. Well, learning about it is, everybody has to learn about it at some point. Well, I mean, I guess you don't actually have to learn about coding, but everybody has to start somewhere, is what I'm trying to get at. Cool. Okay, so integration engineer in Brazil using PHP. Ooh, actually, I have a student that was asking me about getting started with PHP yesterday because they got an offer to do some stuff with Laravel. So, uh, yeah, cool. We got some basics JavaScript, basically HTML, CSS. Cool. Actually, Bootstrap is a great skill to have. I have a funny little story about why I know Bootstrap, and it was because I was told that I needed to learn Zero Foundation, which is a competitor to Bootstrap, for a job. And then when we got there, they were like, "Oh yeah, the client changed their mind. They want this in Bootstrap," which was how I learned Bootstrap in 24 hours. Oh yeah, cool. Okay, so we've got a wide variety of skills. Let's get rolling with that. So let's actually do the screen sharing thing and give me just a second to pull up the chat so that I can still um, see you guys typing to me. Okay, cool. So today's project, our problem that we have to solve is that we've got a pile of words that we want to put into a domain name. Um, so we want our domain names to be formed in a fairly specific way. We want like the cool domain.com, the cool website.com, uh, the awesome domain.com, the awesome website.com. And these are just examples. Like we don't have to use these exact words like when we get into this. Um, I'm doing this to highlight the kind of structure that's there. So each of our URLs has uh, cat That's my water glass. Please don't stick your face all the way in the bottom of it. Also, you're going to knock it down. Mm, excuse me. Had to beat the cat drinking the water. Otherwise, I would have a desk full of water. Um, Also, they absolutely did change. Well, they changed something in OneNote, so we're going to be using the highlighter, even though it's kind of ugly. So our domains, our domain names have like three different parts. They have eh, they have like four different parts. So we have the first word in there. Then we have an adjective or a describing word, and then finally we have our noun. And then finally, because I forgot this one piece here, we have our top level domain or our TLD. So these are things like .com, .org, .net, if anybody uses .net. Um, so we've got a structure here that we can begin to identify. Um, so since we can see the structure instead of like handwriting all these out, let's try figuring out what it what like a series of instructions would look like, provided we have a a pile of words. So for that first pile of words, we're going to have the, an, some. For that second pile of words, we're going to have cool, awesome, nifty. For that third pile of words, we're going to have website, blog, domain. And then for the final pile, for the top level domains, we're going to do .org, .com. What are some cool ones that I've encountered recently? I actually bought a .space domain recently. Um, Fun fact. Yeah, let's add in .de there for our German friends. Cool. So we've got this like pile of words, and now we need to figure out a set of instructions to take this pile of words and turn it into a list of domain names for us. And we're like, until we actually switch over to writing the code, which we'll do in the not too distant future. We're going to speak about this in kind of generic terms. So, um, for the next few minutes, I'm going to avoid using anything fancy like concatenate or pop items from the stack, et cetera, et cetera. So, step one, to turn this list of lists into all of our domain names is pick a word from list one. Two is pick a word from list two. Three is pick a word from list three. And then four is pick a TLD. Pick, I said, I swear, I can write. Uh, then we need to join them together. So let's just, for example, thecoolwebsite.org is our first one. So we need to join those words, which leaves us in our example with the cool website.org. And since we want all of these, we can jump back up to step 4 and pick the next TLD, which allows us to do thecoolwebsite.com. And then we do this until we run out of uh, top level domains. I've already forgotten .space and .de. Cool. Once we're out of top level domains, we can do the jumping back again. We can until we run out of nouns, we can jump back up to step 3. So we've got website, blog, and domain. And you can start to see where we're going. What we're doing is we're just picking we're picking the next one from each list in an order. When we refresh or when we run out of items from a list, so like when we run out of top level domains, we pick our next up on the list. We go through the top level domains again. We pick our next thing from this list, and then because we're done with this list, we can break out a level, and then we can pick this. So we can start working on the awesome website.org com space de, and then the awesome blog org com space de. Um, and that's where we're cat. That is, let's. I'm going to keep a count, by the way. That is the second time the the cat has, or a cat, because there are two of them. A cat has tried to walk on my keyboard. And yeah, I'll keep this updated because that's going to be mildly entertaining, maybe. Cool. So we've got something that actually vaguely looks like an algorithm here. Let's zoom out so that we can see more of it simultaneously. So yeah, we've broken down our problem into pieces, and we've got kind of a black box. So like we can take our list of lists, put them into this black box, and get our URLs. Now, we've got our instructions. Cool. On at this point, all we need to do is start figuring out how to write this code. So we're going to put this down for a second. We're going to put the doodles down for a second. And let me put my drawing tablet down for a second. I'm going to switch over to actually showing you guys some code. The first thing is I'm going to toss this URL into chat. This is one of the templates that we use for projects at our school or at the academy. Um, we're going to be using this. If you'd like to code along, you're welcome to. I will step you guys through how to start up the project. And then anybody that wants to, be able to save this in the long run, at the end of the class, I will go over how to save this on your own GitHub account. Cool. Also, be prepared for me to say "cool" a lot. That is in my lexicon. Um, let's. Okay, cool. Um, just a quick check. Everybody can see this, correct? Hopefully. Okay. Awesome. I hadn't done a check in a while. Actually, like the entire course or the class so far, but here. Okay, so our steps for getting rolling on this are to there's this use this template button. On your end, you guys won't see the Git pod button. I have that from a let me turn off that plugin for now. Um, Cool. So this should be closer to what you're seeing. You might not have it in night mode. You will need to be logged into GitHub for this. We're going to click use this template, and we're going to open it in a code space. That's going to actually give us a code editor in the browser. So if your computer can run Microsoft Chrome, Google Chrome, then you can do this. So it's going to take a second for everything to spin up. Let's zoom in because not everybody is working on a gigantic monitor like I am. After a minute or two, once this is all set up, I'll get around to actually showing you the ins and outs of this template. Cool. Yep, it looks like it's running now. Okay, so a couple of things on your screen. This left-hand bar over here, those are the files that are in this workspace. Second, it's going to open up this readme.md on your screen. You can edit this, but the big thing that we want is first of all, there's a typo here, and you are welcome to submit a fix for that typo on the repository. If not, I will be pointing it out to my students because one of the things that we do is we encourage our students to contribute to repositories. And in fact, one of those is an assignment to fix typos. But we're going to copy this command. I'm using Control C. On Mac, it's going to be Command C, or you can just right click and select copy. And then I'm going to paste this into the terminal. Let's, with Control or Command V, and I'm going to just run npm install. npm is a utility that allows us to actually install code other people have written. And then the next command is on the next line, which is, well, 2 lines later, but npm run start. And again, I'm going to paste that into the terminal, hit return, and it's going to open up a website, which, sorry for going straight from a very dark screen to a very light screen with no warning. Um, but yeah, that is the code that's running on this machine. That's right. On Chrome, the command that I want is Control Shift P. Um, I'm going to um, I'm going to open up the simple browser here so that I don't have to switch back and forth between screens a lot. Um, I'm going to still have to switch back and forth between screens a lot because I'm going to need the terminal or the command, the console. Okay, let's ignore that momentarily. So for the things that you need to worry about in this template, you can ignore the underscore utils folder, you can ignore .dev container, you can ignore .vs code, and you can ignore node underscore modules. All we care about is the source, and all we care about there is the app.js. This is the file that we're going to be writing all of our JavaScript code in. And what we're going to do on for today's um, lesson is we're just going to output some stuff to the console here, but we're going to write it in a way that allows us to put it on the page. And if we have time, I'll show you how to put it on the page. Um, let's go back to our domain name generator here. So we need to pick a word from list one, list two, which one of the things that we're going to need to do is let's set up these lists now. Which is here. Okay, so first off, welcome to JavaScript. There are going to be lots of squiggly braces. There are going to be lots of parentheses. There's everything that we're going to be writing is going to be in between this opening squiggly brace that starts on line 8 and this closing squiggly brace on line 11. And the phone buzzing was not anything important. If you could hear that over my microphone, it was just my phone trying to get me to buy something. Welcome to the modern world. Cool. Okay. First step is we need a way to actually this template is set up to auto format. You'll see that like if I put in um, a break return here and then I pause for a second to talk, it's going to auto format. So I'm putting this comment here just to save my sanity momentarily. But okay, cool. So we need a way to let the computer remember a uh, what we're asking it to remember. And we can do that by storing a variable. Variables come into varieties in JavaScript. Three varieties in JavaScript, but we're only going to cover two because the third one's old and not very good. The first one is const. Um, so we say a constant with the name some variable is equal to, and in this case, this is an array. An array is just a way to store a whole bunch of, like a bunch of different types of information that are related together. We're going to be working with those a lot today. So we say some variable or const some variable is equal to this value. And what a const is basically It's a constant. Once you set it, you can't change it. Uh, with some exceptions that we're not going to cover, but we're going to use the other keyword, which is let. Um, so part of me is like Google, what part of speech is the word the? To it's an article that functions as both an adjective and an adverb. Okay. Um, let article equal our array, and then we're going to put some text into here. Um, I've messed around with ChatGPT for actually writing some for writing code. And it does really well on some very simple things. But the as you get into more niche things, um, and like as you start asking it for more and more complicated things, it starts like hallucinating, and it's wild. It is a lot of fun to mess around with, but I'd be careful if you're asking it to do anything more complicated than some fairly simple things, because you might not know what's wrong about what its response is. It could be giving you a response that's garbage but doesn't throw any errors. But yeah, okay. So our list of articles. This is an array, and every time I pause, it formats. So let me go back to here. The and some um do I need to go here. And I'm going to pluralize this. So our next is going to be let adjectives. This is going to be another array, and um, the two things that I skimmed over, or like I skirted past really fast that I'm going to go back and explain. The thing that makes it an array are these square braces, and the fact that it has commas in between the items in the array. And then these things in the array, they're called strings. They're just text. Um, when you're looking at this looks like text as well, and this looks like text. But when the JavaScript engine interprets this, it's seeing this stuff as JavaScript, and then this stuff as text that it should not interpret as JavaScript. So this stuff here, we can type whatever we want in this. We could even type like valid JavaScript into here. We could like do something recursive. Which I wouldn't recommend doing, but you could do this. So like when the JavaScript engine reads through this file, it'll see this stuff as JavaScript, but it'll see this stuff as just a series of characters or a series of letters, and it won't give it any meaning. But awesome, cool, intriguing. Anybody have any good adjectives to throw our way? Um, thrilling. I like that one. Um, let's try to get like one or two more adjectives. Um, and I'll fill in a couple more articles. Funny. Funny's a good one. Okay, let's see. We've got five. We've got four articles. Um, some another. Any. We'll do any as another. one of those. Cool. And then we're going to do let. I said we're going to do bounds. Let nouns equal. We're going to do another array because we're storing a bunch of values here. Um, Time to increment the cat counter. 1 second. Let's grab my tablet. Three times. Three times the cat has tried to walk on my keyboard in 35 minutes. Okay. We've got websites, we've got blogs, we've got web apps, website, blog, web app. Um, do, 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 Spot. Uh, let's also do Hub. Okay, cool. So we've got 5 articles, we've got 5 adjectives, and we've got 5 nouns. So we've got in our first step. We have saved we stored our various bits and bobs that we're going to use to build these things. Except that we forgot on one already because we got this far and I forgot to do this one. Okay. And then finally, we want to let TLDs, our top level domains, equal we had .com, .de, .org, .space, I think .rocks is a valid top level domain. Um, yeah, let's overwrite this. Let's look up valid TLDs because there is a huge number of top level domains. We've got able. Uh, there's some wild ones. Probably about a decade ago, top level domains stopped being solely in the purview of a very small number of people. And lots of people can host TLDs now, which is why we have Blockbuster. Actually, we probably don't have Blockbuster because of that, but that's why we have Behringer, um, and Bosch. Uh, yeah, let's do, um, in this case, Dot Barcelona is probably, for a brand, because a lot of these are for brands. Uh, yeah, let's do .org. Oh yes, .cat is a good one. And if we're going to go that way, let's also do .dog. Um, cool. So we've got like all our pieces. Now we just need to give instructions to the computer to actually piece these together. Um, and I'm going to introduce you to our friend console.log because this is how we're going to see the output of this. Um, so as I just typed out, anything you put into console.log will show up in the JS console in the browser. So if I go here and I refresh this page, it's going to run that script, and you'll see anything that you put in console.log will show up in JavaScript in the browser. I'm going to hide errors for the time being. Um, so that's kind of step one there. we can pass a string into here, and then we can display it. We can also display things that aren't strings. So like I could pass articles into console.log, and we can see our array of articles, which is actually it's showing us some interesting stuff. First, you'll notice that there's a number before each item in this. And then secondly, it's saying that the length of this array is 5. And then we get some additional information, which is going to be incredibly daunting at first, but we're going to ignore it because we don't really need a lot of that information. So, let's see. Remove the first org on line 16. You're right. There are two .orgs. Also, one of them didn't even have a dot. My typing was sloppy. But yeah, basically console.log allows us to put stuff in the console. You don't use this in production a lot because well, I mean, people leave console.logs in production all the time. Like if you go to no, I want to type here. If you go to google.com, um we get some errors. Oh, did they remove that? They used to have a little recruiting message in here. What about Replit? I think Replit still has their little recruiting message. There. Yeah, you'll actually see that people will sometimes put, messages. And a lot of times you like if you wander around and you look at the JavaScript console, you sometimes find these recruiting messages. Yeah. Let's see. See, stopped here. Um, but yeah, okay, cool. So our next piece of tech. Oh, the main console log left on projects. Um, let's see. Was that on was that on here or oh yeah, yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, you'll find debug messages everywhere if you wander around with your console open. Um, it is wild. Um, okay. So we've got a couple of ways that we can build a URL. So I could do like articles. So what I'm doing here is I'm referencing this variable articles. Um, and then I can use what's called square brace notation, and then a number to get an item out of this array. And then I can do this the same way for each of these. And I can just add together these strings. Um, and then when I go back to our JavaScript console here and I refresh the page, you'll see we get the awesome website.com. We've built a string that contains all of our stuff. Now, I don't want to write this, let's see, 525, 125 times 8. Let's see, 125 times 8. I don't want to write this 1,000 times because we've got between all of these various articles, adjectives, nouns, and TLDs, we've got 1,000 different domain names. And, writing this out manually a whole bunch of times is going to be very slow. Especially when we've got a computer right here to solve this problem for us. And the second thing is before we get into actually explaining how to solve this problem, there are other ways to do this. Um, So in JavaScript, we have this backtick symbol, which I'm going to hold that down so that it highlights for a second. Oops, where's home? There's home. So this backtick symbol is called a string formatting literal, or maybe, yeah, I think string formatting literal is fully what it's called. They do a couple of things. One is that you can put break returns in them. It's great. Like you can have multi-line strings. Second, you can put quote marks in them. Like if I tossed quote marks into this string, you see I get these red squiggly underlines. It's because you can't put a quote mark into a string or a matching quote mark into a string, which is why when I showed you that example about 15 minutes ago, I put the backslash before it. But as long as you don't put backticks into this string, you can put as many quotes as you want into this string. And the second is it allows you to do this. It allows you to put JavaScript into your string by doing $ and squiggly braces. Oops. Let's remember to put my $ and squiggly braces there. And really all this is doing is it's allowing you to skip the concatenation. You don't have to do math to your strings anymore. It allows you to put JavaScript in here. So if I decided that I wanted this to be uppercase, I could do TLD 0 dots to uppercase. And then when I go back here, we have the awesome website.com, except that the TLD is yelling at you now. Basically, this is a string, but anything in between the squiggly braces after a $ is interpreted like JavaScript. Cool. So we've got our way to put stuff in the command line. We have the beginning of an inkling of an idea of how to pull stuff out of an array. But we want the computer to do the work for us. We want the computer to do the repetitive stuff, and we don't want to have to write the same code 1,000 times. And this is where I'm going to introduce a 4-syllable word called iteration. Yeah, 4 syllables. Had to count that one. Iteration. Basically, we can iterate our stuff. We can tell the computer that, hey, we want to do this thing that's repetitive, and we want you to do the same thing over and over again with very slight differences. So that's where we get our for loop. Now, we've got the old style for loop, which I'm going to type out. And then we're going to never to use again because in the modern day and age, I generally prefer the for of loop. Let's increment the counter by 1, by the way. Okay. Cat has attempted to walk across the counter one more time, but she's been distracted by the cat bed and is super adorable. But anyways, cool. This is traditional iteration. We say that, hey, we want to do, yeah. One, I will be doing the for of loop momentarily, because yeah, this old style stuff, it still has its place, but I prefer for of loops, pretty exclusively at this point, unless I need the index of something, but we'll get there. So with this traditional for loop, we set up our initial state. We want our iterator, I in this case, to be 0. because the first item in an array is at index 0. Our next thing is the condition. So as this is truthy, so as long as I is less than articles.length, this statement here is truthy. So for 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, because those are all less than 5, which is the length of articles, this code will run, and then we add 1 to I on every loop, which is what plus plus does. The best part is we can just replace that. We can just say for let article of articles, and then we can do things with that variable. That's the for of loop. It does a couple of things. One, it skips us having to interact with the index of the items in the array. We can just interact with the things in the array. Like if I mouse over this variable article, you can see let article, and we can see that it's a string because JavaScript knows that everything contained in this array is a string. And if I mouse over articles, it'll say that, hey, this is an array of strings. Cool. If I go back here and I refresh the page, we get one item out of our array at a time for each console.log. Now, we can put whatever code we want into this for loop. Sorry, the cat is being absurdly adorable right now. And okay, cool. So yeah, um, we've got that first loop, that first thing where let's go back to the notes quickly. So like we have selected the from our array because we're going to be using the for a while. Now we need to do the same thing for selecting an item from here. Um, Louis, that is there's actually a slightly different one. That is specifically the for each. It would be articles dot for each. Let's do articles so that we're consistent. Um, this is the same thing. Um, but it's written somewhat differently. This for each loop, it involves a couple of things. It involves anonymous functions. It's a higher order function as well, which is it's honestly a bit of a tall ask to explain in like an hour, especially when I'm just getting to it now. But the short definition of a higher order function, a function being code that you want to run repeatedly. A higher order function is just a function that takes a function as an argument. So this for each function takes this function here as an argument, and then it runs that on every item in articles. Um, I use these for each occasionally at this point, but a lot less than I used to. But yeah, so we can just nest these. So let's do adjective of adjectives, and then we could do for thought, for noun, let noun of nouns, and then suddenly we've got this structure that which I just realized that I forgot to alt tab back to the preview. So let's first off let's quickly go here. Um, no, that was absolutely my bad. Um, and let's do articles. Um, let's do the squiggly braces here. Okay, so this articles dot for each is the higher order function I was talking about. That would be the same as for let article of articles. Um, so this code is the equivalent of this code. It's just a different way to write it. And the space or the place where I usually use this kind of code is when I'm trying to like iterate over something in a spot where I don't really want to have like a full for loop, because one of the things I can do here is get rid of this and suddenly it's a single line. If I'm not doing anything hugely complicated and I just want something on a single line, that's kind of what I'll go for. Um, let's get rid of this code here. But yeah, basically all where we've gotten now is we've just nested a whole bunch of for loops. Um, I could completely fill up my console if I wanted to show you uh, what was happening in each loop simultaneously. But it's probably going to be a bit easier to show you this. I'm going to log an array of stuff, and then refresh this page, and then suddenly we've got 1,000 things on the console. And you can see that like it's going over every single or every single permutation of these. I always have to remember which one is which when I'm talking about permutations and combinations, because those are those are terms that I actually were borrowed from math for this. But yeah, like we've got a ton of stuff here, including any funny web app dog. Um, yeah, and it's exhaustively covering all of our options here. So all we need to do now is we need to turn this into a URL. And that's where we get back to the backtick strings. So everything that's in these squiggly braces is treated like JavaScript. So we can just say, hey, we've got this empty string, but in it, we want you to put the contents of the variable article, the contents of the variable adjective, the contents of the variable noun, and the contents of the variable TLD, which as we're iterating over this is going to change. TLD will, like, when we're running this for loop, it's going to run the contents of this for loop once for every top level domain. So on the first iteration, TLD will be equal to .com. Second, it'll be equal to .de. We'll get .space, .rocks, .barcelona, .org, .cat, and .dog. And then we'll exit that loop and end up in this one, where we'll start running this code and we get back here to rerunning for TLD of TLDs, but with a new noun now. And then once we run out of nouns, we get a new adjective and we run all this code inside again. When we run out of adjectives, we get a new article, then we run all that code inside again. And if I refresh this page, suddenly we've got our black box that turns our list of uh, random names into a bunch of domain names. so that we can go and try them all. I'm going to pause for questions here. Is there anything that you guys aren't following? Is there anything that you want me to explain better? Okay, cool. I'm glad. So, okay, so basically for each is a method that exists on arrays. The reason that you'd want to use for each is, let's say that you only want to iterate over articles that start with A. So we only want an, another, and any, but we can't change that list. So we could do articles dot filter item item 0 dot to lowercase is equal to a, and then we could do dot for each article, um, and then we can console.log that. And let's cool. So what we have here is we're taking articles, we're doing something to the array. In this case, we're filtering the array, so we're taking a subset of the array via this magical function, which all it does is it returns true if the first letter of array is a, and then we're taking the output of that array or that function, which is another array, and then we're doing this for each. That's like kind of like one of the situations that you'd use a for each. Um, or you might like there's a like you could map here if you're doing this in one. Yeah, it's exactly like the map function. Um, there it used to also be the case that for each was significantly better supported. Um, so the JavaScript for of loop, not all that long ago, wasn't well supported. Um, okay, so that's actually almost a decade ago. Time flies, by the way, and it will never be supported in IE 11. But yeah, the for of loop used to not be super well supported, but for each um, has been supported since. Oh wow, is it? Were they actually released at the same time? Yeah, okay, so 4 of it currently has 96% support globally, and 4 each is 96.6. That used to be like 95 for 4 of, or like 94 for 4 of. So like 4 each was just better supported. Um, yeah. Yeah, also the map function is another one of those higher order functions, which are basically just functions that take functions. Cool. So, um, I'm going to quickly, um, we're going to quickly just rewrite this, so that we can just display stuff on the page because it's going to be a little bit nicer than that. Um, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to let domain names equal an empty array. And instead of console.logging this, I'm going to domain names.push. Push is a method on arrays that allows us to just add things to the array. And then finally, I'm going to get caught by the auto format and document.body.innerHTML is going to be equal to, and we're going to do unordered list. So we're just going to put in an unordered list HTML element in here. And I'm going to use one of those higher order functions, specifically map. And we're going to domain names.map. And then for every domain name, we're going to return a list item that contains our domain name. So here, basically we're finding the document, or we're finding our HTML document, and we're changing the body of the document so that the stuff inside that is equal to the output of what we're doing here. Which is basically just we're doing some we're doing a little bit of magic with this map function. There's probably a less magic way to do that quickly. That just lets it one second. I put a comma in there somewhere. No, I didn't put a comma in there. Um, where am I getting that comma? Oh, one second. I had to click the overwrite button. And hey, now we're just displaying it on the page. One of the things that like I try to do whenever I'm solving a problem with code, is I try to like think about the problem as what input do I have, what output do I need, and how do I get from point A to point B? And that's kind of the thought processes that I was trying to show you guys here. That being said, if anybody followed along and wants to actually save this work on their repository or their own repository, one second, that is the wrong window. This window. Um, then the steps that we're going to need to do for that is we'll need to go back to GitHub. We can click this plus button here, and we can just make a new repository. Yeah, that's probably going to be, well, actually, one second. If I try to git push here, it's going to complain at me. Actually, I'm going to, oh, I know how to go about this. Yeah, it's going to complain at me, but okay, so there's this button here. It looks kind of like a backwards Y with circles on the end of it. Um, that's the Git interface. This is going to make it so that we don't have to deal with the command line for a minute. What you want to do is you want to, next to this app.js, click the plus button because we need to stage these changes. And we're going to give ourselves a message. In this case, we've got I think this was like assignment 3 or 4. Let's So we can save this by giving ourselves a message and then committing this. And then we want to click this publish branch thing, which is going to um, ask us if we want to publish this to a private repository, a public repository, and it wants us to change, or it's asking us what name we want here, despite not actually telling us that's what it's asking us. Um, so I'm going to type in a new name, and I'm going to publish it to a public repository, and it'll take a second. I was honestly expecting it to yell at us at some point in this project. But if I go back to GitHub and I go to my repositories, you can see we have my domain name generator here and all of my code, including the change that I made 1 minute ago. So if you want to save this code, those are the steps that you want to do. Oh yeah. Let's see. Da-da-da. Cool. I'm going to open this up for questions, and then let's stop sharing, and then we'll do the outro. Oh, let me actually open up the chat again so that I can see that. But yeah, any questions, concerns, comments, criticisms? I'm trying to come up with more C words, but no dice. Well, if that's the case, it was great having you guys here. I hope you had a good time, and I will stick around for a few more minutes. Just, um, I mean, yeah, we can check it to see if any of the domains are available. I don't have a rea. Oh, we could probably do that with a fetch request. I wonder if name.com has an API. Because just because a domain doesn't have a response doesn't mean that it is available. But you could. I wonder if there's a who is API. Who is API free? Da, 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 there's one on Rapid API, but I generally avoid Rapid API. Da, da, da. Rapid API is a website that basically hosts a whole bunch of online API, like RESTful APIs, so APIs that you can interact with over the internet. Or basically, it's data that you can get from other servers. That's the short version of what an API is. But they they have a whole bunch of stuff that is of questionable utility. I've had students successfully use their stuff in capstone projects. But generally, what they've had to do is they've either had to shell out actual money for their capstone for like a plan for Rapid API for their capstone project to get it to work, or they've had to make tons of accounts to get past the request limit. Okay, Marina, like, yeah, I can, give me a second. Let's, oh, I have to, let's see, full screen projection. Let's get the preview back. So yeah, we've got, we can actually make this a very slightly different thing. Because we've already got our list of domain names here. Once the page loads, it's going to fill this up with all of the possible domain names. And if we want just one instead of all of them, let's rewrite this a little bit. I'm just going to make it one list item. Actually, let's make this an H1. So it'll be nice and big. Okay, so first of all, we want to get an item from domain names. And you remember how in the beginning I showed you guys that you could access an item via, one second, let me get the chat back up. There's the chat. There's the chat. Via putting in a number here, like 0 or 1 or whatever. Well, we can, this is a pattern you're going to see a lot. First, we want to do math.floor. Math.floor is, let me open up the console. So math.floor, if I pass in a fractional number here, it's math.floor removes everything to the right of the decimal point. Our next function that we're going to be using to compose this solution is going to be math.random. Math.random gives us a random number. This random number is always going to be between 0 and 1. So that's going to be a bit of a problem if we want to floor this. Because if I floor a number between 0 and 1, I'm always going to get 0. But I can expand the range of math.random by multiplying it by a number. So let's say we've got 10 items and we want to pick between them. Because JavaScript arrays start at 0, we want to round down. And then we have this pattern here where we can floor a random number multiplied by our range. And you'll see that I'm getting a random number between 0 and 10 here. In fact, we got both extremes there. So, and then the last thing is that we want, that I'm going to show, is arrays have a property called length. So if I add an item to this array, like every time I add an item to this array, this length gets bigger. This is the number of items in the array, which coincidentally is what we want this number to be. So let's take this and let's paste this code in here. We definitely have more than 10 domain names. So we want this to be domain names.length. And now when we refresh this page, it takes a hot second to run because we are doing a lot of iterating. And now we just have a site that displays a random domain name. We can improve this a little bit if we want to go here. And let's okay, let's do ID equals domain name, domain dash name. Is that a valid? Let's just call this domain, and let's make a button with and we're just going to put a piece there. So I'm going to do a little bit of magic here. Um, da, 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 da. I did my magic wrong here. I want this here. And then I also need to give this an ID. Um, which I'm going to put that there. Let's overwrite this. And let's copy this. And this isn't going to be domain, but this is going to be generate. Okay, so here's a quick rundown of what I'm doing. I'm 100% React. Like everything I'm doing here, I can do in React in like 5 seconds, without having to do a bunch of this. Like unless you're doing fairly very, very small things, React abstracts away a lot of this complexity. So here on line 36, I'm finding an element on the page that has the ID generate, and I'm giving it an on-click event, which I think has a capital C, but we'll find out momentarily. Pretty sure it's got a capital C. Um, that is, it's less common to have your whole page break in production if you have some error. But I've I've had I've had some pretty traumatic stuff happen. Oh, also, I do need to. No, I don't need to do that. I was thinking about React. Okay, so yeah, basically we're assigning the onClick to be a function here that finds an element of the page with the ID domain and sets the inner HTML to our random thing. So if I go here, um, it is lowercase c. Yeah, 95% of the time I do this in React, or I do this kind of thing in React. So they're going back to like traditional DOM manipulation. Like this is always exciting. There, so that actually shows something. But yeah, now we have a website that allows us to generate a random domain name on demand. And for the record, doing this in React, this spot would be so much prettier. Because React components are just a lot prettier than non manipulation like this. And Manuel, the going back to the what do I think about the situation where the whole page breaks if you have some error? There are tools for error handling. Eh, that will allow you to get around things breaking. Um, but generally, once you hit production with an application or with a React app, you'll have tested most of those edge cases that will lead to your page breaking. Um, also, I just realized that the name of this workspace is Super Space Pancaked, and I love it. Um, it is it is wonderful. Another intriguing web app dot rocks. Also, some intriguing web app dot cat. Okay, so those tools that you get, like I was about to use divide by zero as an example, but JavaScript allows divide by zero. But in JavaScript, you can do something called a try-catch block. Um, so you can try console.log. Now it's kind of hard to throw errors. I'm just going to raise or throw an error. Um, the React code is going to be it will be a bit easier to understand. That's something that we actually cover fairly early on. But all the document.query selectors do is allow you to um is allow you to find things on the page and interact with them as if they have because they're JavaScript. Um, uh, uh, okay, so this control flow structure here is called a try catch block. It allows you to try something, and then if an error happens, it allows you to catch it, and then the script continues running. Um, like if I'm going to comment this out here, and I'm going to just throw an error in this script. And when I refresh this page, um, you'll see that, hey, oh no, something broke. I get this error that warned me that about that. But if I have this try catch block here, the page loads. What the try catch block does is it allows us to try something, and if it fails, we can handle that failure, however it happens. So when I refresh this page, I'm handling the error by logging it. You can see error, oh no, something broke at our app.js in the window.onload function. Yeah, Louis, query selectors are kind of daunting. I will quickly show you guys a page that helps understanding. Da-da-da. Um, this wonderful person made this website that explains query selectors that you put in. So like, um, what was it? Domain was one of them, and it just explains it. It's an element with the ID domain, or we can do something more complicated by like this one, which is a label element with a class fading out that's directly adjacent to an input element with an attribute type whose value is checkbox provided is checked. Like, this is a great website. I'm going to link it to you guys in chat. If you're serious about HTML and CSS, having this website available for you is great. Um, because it it does just what it explains query selectors. It's one of my favorite websites to share with students early on. Um, I mean, honestly, like this one doesn't work for some newer things. That was Control S, not Control A. So like input uh has um div dot something. And I'm pretty sure that's yeah, okay. So like this is the has pseudo selector is fairly new. And this hasn't been updated. Um so Marina, the selectors that were like what I'm doing here, this query selector. That's a CSS selector. So yeah, it works for fine like that works for selecting stuff from JavaScript. Um, and HTML itself doesn't really have a concept that's equivalent to selectors, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, I'm pretty sure, Louis, that ChatGPT would be able to understand this one. Uh, but you'd have to try it out. Um, this will work for a pretty like a pretty good selection, but it also hasn't been updated in 4 months. And that was only a minor security update. So cool. Thank you very much, Chad. Honestly, it is about time to wrap up. I have definitely left the the like we are past uh wait, I just lost Blue Chains. There's Blue Chains. Okay, we are definitely past the contents of this lesson, and I'm mostly just yammering at you guys. It's been wonderful. Thank you guys for coming, and I'll stick around for a couple more minutes. Well, to answer questions, but yeah, I'll probably stick around to like 7:40 local. So yeah, um, I had a good time, and I hope you guys did too. Um, I'm going to perturb the kitten quickly. Here, have cat. Dot cat. uh, you're welcome, and have a wonderful night. Uh, there's a subreddit called Cats Standing Up where people just post photos of cats standing on their hind legs, and every comment on that subreddit is just cat. It's wonderful. Yeah, I mean there's a lot to learn. Like you can like if you want something where you're going to keep your brain active and you're going to be learning new things all the time, this is a great field. Um, I love just sitting down and learning new skills. I mean, this week I'm working on building just like this is a hobbyist project. I'm working on building a Game Boy game with a former student of mine. And it's being a lot of fun. Uh, I wrote my first websites in 1998. I was like 11 at that time, so it wasn't a very good website. It was just a whole bunch of badly photoshopped boombox puns. But I've been doing websites and coding ever since, pretty much. So like 25 years, give or take. Um, about 12 years at this point, 12 or 13 years professionally though. So not nearly as long as my terrible website of Boombox Puns uh, has been around probably. If it's still up in one of the GeoCity dumps somewhere. Yeah. One of the things that has like um, my first website was before CSS was widely supported, I believe. So uh, um, So I don't think that Metal, I don't think that ChatGPT is going to get rid of jobs in the tech industry. You Even if you can get a large language model like that to write good code, you're still going to need people who understand the code that it writes, um, to be able to vet that, to be able to make sure that it's actually doing what it wants. Um, On Luis, or Louis, my favorite programming language, honestly, is probably Python. I feel incredibly, like I feel like I can convey my ideas in Python very well. Um, my least favorite Python, like I joke about PHP being a terrible programming language. Uh, yeah, Def, I got you. But it's not like it's grown as a language. It's got some issues. Um, I don't know. I like honestly, my least favorite programming languages to actually write anything in are ones that are kind of like joke languages, like BF, which is an awful language to read. And is intended to be that way. It's a programming language that has like 8 instructions, and they're all random characters on your keyboard. Um, okay, so Java is a language that is maintained by, uh, I believe, Oracle at this point, but maybe also Sun Microsystems. JavaScript borrows some of its syntax, so it borrows like the squiggly braces and a few other things. So they look kind of similar. But Java is largely used for desktop applications and um, because it doesn't run in the browser. JavaScript runs in the browser, Java runs on the desktop. They share similar names. There's a bit of historical drama there, which um, the people who made JavaScript decided they wanted it to sound kind of like Java. But yeah, um, honestly, Java's on the list of languages that I don't really like coding in, but that's largely due to the state of its documentation. There are so many active versions of Java kicking around between that it's hard to get good answers. Um, or at least it was a few years ago. Um, but yeah, basically, Java is a language, an object-oriented language for I. If you've got a good teacher, it can be good. Um, yes, I do backend as well. I uh, that's actually where I do basically all of my Python work is backend stuff. I mostly work in Flask. I've recently been like past 6 months, I've been working with a variant of Flask called API Flask. That does some really nice stuff that basically self-documents, and it's wonderful. I love it. Um, ooh, how do I think about programs? That is, oh, okay, okay. Let me open the chat on the screen that you guys are on so that it's not like I'm looking away. Um, um, Honestly, anything that increases the accessibility of people to being able to make cool things is great. Um, like tools that help people make cool things is, I mean, they're cool. I just used that word like 5 times in the past sentence. I don't use GUI editors anymore, or graphical user interface web page editors anymore, really. like they don't write the best HTML code, but they allow people to make websites about things they're interested in, which is awesome. Um, like when I started writing HTML, there were tools that did that, but they were expensive. Like my father had a copy of NetObjects Fusion, and I used that. And it wasn't very good, first of all, but it worked. um, and it got me interested in doing this kind of stuff. Um, like they're not. Some people in the industry find it um find it fun to be snobby about stuff, but there's no reason to be snobby about stuff. I don't I prefer to be enthusiastic about like stuff that makes it easier for people. Um I'm very realistic about ChatGPT. It doesn't really it doesn't really work very well for very complicated things, but it's a tool that's helping people understand programming. Um, Although it is sometimes very wrong in subtle ways. So be a little bit careful about it. Like step through the code, see if the explanation the ChatGPT gives you makes sense, and if it does, cool. Um, yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a nice night, everybody. Cool. You're welcome. Oh, yeah, thank you. I I'm glad you joined us. You are you are one of the furthest away people that I've taught. So, um, let's see if we're at -5 GPT, so or GMT, and then Germany's a couple hours over. Um, so it's probably like early morning for you, so that'd be Guten Morgen, I think. I could actually look up what time it is in Germany. Uh, okay. Oh yeah, oh god, it's 1:45 a.m. So that'd be good to Nacht. Yeah. Uh, okay. Have a good night. Get some good rest. Okay. Yeah. You're welcome. Okay. On that note, I'm going to call it. And yeah, have a good night, everybody.